Attention stop motion listeners. I have Mr. Larry Locke from, where are you from?
Well, I'm from Orange County now, which means nowhere, right?
So, first off, let me start by saying I met Larry in 2005 at the Asifa
It's
stop
actually
motion.
2007. I checked.
Is it 2007?
2007,
Okay.
April 21st, 2007.
Okay, that makes more sense then. So, Asifa Stop Motion Festival in Burbank at
Yes.
Woodbury College.
Yes, Stopmo Expo.
Stopmo Expo, yeah. And you were part of Asifa at the time.
Yes, I was on the board of directors.
Sure. And let's start at the very beginning. So this is where I met you. But I ran into you again recently at Gumby Fest.
Yeah,
And then we hadn't seen each other in a while. We really didn't know each other. It was like, hey, you did that? Oh, I did this, and blah, blah, blah. And we
One of those.
Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning. How'd you get into stop motion?
When I was young, I always wanted to be a superhero. Mm-hmm. I went to the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon, Graphic Arts, and Human Sacrifice in Dover, New Jersey, second graduating class. So I was in with all the, Steve Bissett was my roommate from Swamp Thing, John Toddleben, another guy from Swamp Thing. Mm-hmm. In fact, I am a character in Swamp Thing. Chester Williams is modeled after me.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm also a superhero.
Okay, what superhero are you?
Absurd Man, Marvel Premiere 23, 1980. Steve Bissett got this script that everybody had turned down, and he says, okay, if I can rewrite it, I'll do it. And he used me as the model. So I'm a superhero. So my goal to be a superhero, I'd done that. And then after you've accomplished everything, then what are you going to do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, I fell in with a couple of people. I fell in with a student from the first year through, which I was in the second year, Ernie Passanon, who was a electronic genius.
Now, when you say student from the first year, what do you
They were the first year through the school.
Which school?
Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Arts.
There you go.
And he was just this electronic whiz, and we built our own computer, and we bought all these parts at Canal Street. There was like Army surplus parts, $1 a pound.
Oh, wow.
And we built this user-unfriendly computer, and I did animatronic head that would talk to you. Oh. And it was based on the sound. We actually had the clapper before the clapper was the clapper. That was what was running it.
Oh, nice.
When we first got it up and running, you'd clap in my studio and the mouth would go clunk, clunk. And if you clapped real hard, the mouth would just keep going. And the other guy I fell in with was John Bisson, who's into special effects, and he went, I think it was New Moon or one of those. Yeah. He's been doing special effects ever since. And the animatronics led to some go motion.
Okay.
And the go motion led to stop motion. Mm-hmm. And of course, I was raised on Harryhausen. Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. I remember all the Kubert schools students got together and went down to the local mall and watched Eye of the Tiger when it first came out, and there was this Bissett. Are you familiar with the work of Steve Bissett?
No, not so much. I know who he is.
Okay, he did a lot of dinosaur stuff. He did Tyrant, which was the life of a dinosaur, T-Rex. Mm-hmm. He got into it because of Harryhausen. Mm-hmm. And when he was doing this whole thing with T-Rex, Tyrant, he joined the Invertebrate Paleontology Society of America, and he came to the conclusion that almost every invertebrate paleontologist got into it because of Ray Harryhausen.
Nice.
Right? Well, there's this one station that was advertising doing Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and they kept showing these amazing commercials with all the characters, and we're like, really? Yeah. And we got all together and we sat down, and the SOB that had done the titles had cut all of that out of, so he could take it home with him.
Oh.
So the thing that was on TV had none of the Harryhausen special effects.
Oh, no.
And the acting isn't very good.
Okay. Yeah.
It never has been.
Which episode was that? Which
I think
movie?
that was Seventh Voyage.
Seventh Voyage. Okay. Wow. How could you cut that stuff out, though? You know, like that's the key essential parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was like, we were so bummed.
Oh, wow.
Well, I think we went out and got a case of Molson and tried to drown our sorrows.
Nice. I guess if you can't get your Harryhausen, you can get your blood flowing some way.
Yeah.
Wow. So you are now teaching. Where are you teaching at again?
Cal State Fullerton.
Cal State Fullerton.
I've taught it at several places.
Okay.
I did a mentorship with a lady at Woodbury. One of the students there wanted to do stop motion, so Dory called me in. It was a long trip from Orange County, but I'd come in a couple of times a month. And back in those days, I was coming into LA all the time with board meetings at Asifa and events that were going on and events that I was running and stuff. And one of the things that I always run into, and I try to get people to teach stop motion in schools, is there's not enough room for the sets.
We can just do small sets.
This girl set up her set in her art locker.
Right. You mentioned this before we were talking about.
Yeah. She opened her door to her art locker, and there was a position where she'd marked, and she stuck her light on that, and she was lighting it, and she had marks on the floor for her tripod, and she was filming.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about dust because you lock it up at the end of the day. You don't have to worry about somebody walking through and bumping it.
Yeah.
Because it's locked up.
Huh.
That's
crazy.
that was a small set, and she was doing fairly well. She had a desk and some people wandering around in it and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. So was it just this miniature world in her locker?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And then when I saw Men in Black 2, and they had the entire world.
Oh, yeah.
First thing I thought about was this
their
girl.
project. Yeah. Nice. Very cool. So how did you get into teaching stop motion?
I made a very distinct decision at a certain point in my life. I got married, and we were having a family, and my mother always used to tell this story. When I was a little kid, my father was trying to get his garage going, and he was hanging out with his friends, and I wouldn't see him. And at one point I said, "Does Daddy sleep here at night?"
Right.
I didn't want any of my kids to ever say that.
Yeah, that was a hard thing to say.
That's just
thing to hear.
Yeah. So I made a decision at one point. I got a gig in a Japanese manufacturing company. I was the entire art department.
Wow.
And then they reproduced that position that I created in here in California throughout all their other companies in the U.S.
Okay.
So there's all these artists that owed their living to me. And I would come in early in the morning. I was doing these I don't know, like ash can type zines.
Okay.
That were being copied off of the company's,
photocopier.
Yeah. And I was sending them out to a bunch of people, so I continued to do that for the 10 years that I was there. Then in 95, they laid me off. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay.
And I started an animation program because I'd been playing around with it. Some of those zines that I was sending out, I made animation models and did animation, stop motion animation comics that were, low quality printing, but hey, what can you do? And they were being sent out to all my friends from the Kubert School and things like that. I went to an interview to teach at an ROP, a regional occupational program, and I aced the interview. They asked me why I wanted to teach, and I told this story about how my 8th grade English teacher, I'm dyslexic, how my 8th grade English teacher taught me to read, which she basically did. She called up my mother and said, have him ride out on his bicycle. And for one summer, she gave me all the instruction that I'd never gotten as a kid, because they just kind of put me in the corner and ignored me.
Right.
And I think my 1st grade teacher, I still got all of my report cards. The 1st grade teacher, at a certain point, went back and changed my grades lower, my earlier grades. You can see where she erased them out and put a lower grade in.
Wow, that's messed up.
Yeah, that's messed up. And then she told my mother that I was incapable of learning. Oh. So that followed me around until Peggy Russell.
Okay.
Which I'm still friends with her.
Okay.
She edited my stuff for years.
Okay. Who's Peggy Russell?
8th grade English teacher.
Oh, that's the 8th grade English teacher. Oh, okay. I was sorry.
Yeah. But hey.
Yeah. That's great.
Anyhow, they wanted to start an animation program, and I wanted to start an animation program. So I started teaching 2D, and then they wanted me to teach computer. This is back in 96, 7, something like that. So I started out with 3D Max 1. They actually bought the stuff while the class was going and said, here, teach this.
And you never used it before?
I never used it before. And at this point, I'm teaching 3 levels in 2 classrooms. It's like any industry. The people that want to do it on the ground level love it and will kill themselves to do it. And then the people that want the money, they move up and become the bosses.
Right.
And you see that everywhere.
Right.
And I had 60 students, and I couldn't get a TA to help me.
Wow.
And I was teaching 3 different levels, and the 3rd level was an advanced animation, and I kind of was pushing people into stop motion. Okay. So I had several stop motion people, and I was doing some stop motion stuff. And then as I learned 3D Max, I started doing some mask work with clay figures, and I was doing a down shooter without any armatures, and great mobility. And I had this Bumpkin was the name of it. There's still parts of it out on my website. I don't know how well the connections are. And I did the sucker up as a comic strip, and it would have 2 panels with the words underneath it, and one of the panels would be a very small animation because of the speed of the internet in 2000, I think was when I was doing that particular one, was not much. So there were like little bitty animations, and then you click the next one, and it takes you to the next page, which looks exactly like it, only now the next panel is active with sound and whatever. I was there for, I think left in 2000.
Oh, wow.
95 to 2000.
So yeah, 5 years. That's good. That's a good amount of time, though.
Yeah, and I just couldn't get any support. I was trying to build the program and grow the program, and they didn't care. I could get 60, 70 students, and by the time they said you had to have a certain number of students to get a TA. By the time they got around to doing the paperwork, most of the students had left because I couldn't do it all.
Right.
But I had some hardcore students. One that I still get emails from, the guy went through a divorce, lost his kids, lost his car, lost his home, and was homeless, and was still coming into my class and was still animating.
Oh, wow.
The guy was serious about it.
Yeah.
And he's out in Texas now, and every so often he'll send me a link to
He's
something.
doing okay though right now.
Yeah. He's got it back together.
Nice.
It's like his wife took him down bad on that one.
That sucks. Yeah.
Well,
maybe the stop motion was his only release. Mm-hmm. Get him out of that bad space that he was in.
Yeah. Well, he was doing 2D.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because I was teaching 2D, CGI, and computer.
Okay.
And so I've been doing animation pretty much for myself for years.
Yeah.
Never really done it professionally. I've created this book, the which I got to get the next version up.
Sure.
Stop motion on a shoestring. It was originally animation on a shoestring, and it was all these questions that students would ask me.
Sure.
They'd ask me, how do you do this? How do you do that?
Right.
And so I kind of did these little lessons for them, and then I started putting it into a book, and then I started teaching at Comic-Con, and I started selling the book as interactive CDs, and then later it got so big it was on an interactive DVD.
Sure.
And this last year I was going to get it ready for WonderCon as an ebook, but it was just insane trying to port over all those links because everything was linked. Yeah. Every time I mentioned a product, you could click on it and it'd take you right out to the product.
Sure.
But the software just wouldn't import it, so I didn't have time to go through and redo it.
Right.
And since then, I've done 3-minute animations, which the festivals usually will let you put in a minute animation for free. Even the big festivals that are charging big bucks if this allows them to put filler in to their program. So I've been doing these minute animations. And I don't know, my stuff is kind of low end, but hey, that's the people I'm teaching.
Yeah.
I keep trying to get stop motion animation into different schools. When I was teaching at Laguna College of Art and Design, I worked on that for like 3 or 4 years to try to get that. And there was this sculpture teacher that wanted it too. Weren't interested. They always have these same thing. It takes too much room. I had this one. This was, I think, about 4 years ago at Fullerton. Pissed me off so much. I had this student that just really loved stop motion. And I was bringing him along all through my history of animation class, and I was talking to him. And, students can email me and whenever they want. They come into my office, and I was giving him all the advice I could. And then he was doing his senior project. He says, well, I'm going to have to do my senior project in 2D. And I said, why? He says, they says there's just no market for CGI. Nobody can get any jobs in it.
You mean there's no market for stop motion?
A stop motion,
yeah.
Sorry.
The CGI is the market that is exploding at the time, probably.
Yeah, and they were just, and this guy is just lying to the kid because he doesn't want him to do it. And I think it's probably because he doesn't know how to teach it.
Right.
What you get in the schools is 2D and CGI people. And you got this stupid thing going on in schools. They want you to have a master's degree.
Yeah.
Teach.
Yeah.
Master's
or PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I keep getting these things from, I'm not going to mention the school, but they're a for-pay school. And they want me to come in and look at their portfolios of their students. And I keep saying, you've got this thing where nobody can teach unless they've got a master's degree. You basically said that Eric Goldberg, the greatest 2D Looney Tunes style animator in the world, couldn't teach for you. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to even talk to you.
Yeah. A lot of times it's their accreditation. Accreditation won't allow them to have an instructor because of, or a teacher because they'll lose their accreditation. So you have to have a bachelor's
degree.
You have to have a bachelor's degree. You have to have a master's degree or a PhD to be able to. But and so the bachelor's degree you can start teaching with that as long as you're still within a program to go for a master's or a PhD or whatever. It's a little strange.
Yeah, it's really strict. Well, my friend Art Leonardi, have you ever?
No, never met Art, no.
Okay, did a lot of directing of the Pink Panther.
Oh, cool.
He was right at the end of the golden age at Warner Brothers. So he's getting up there. Amazing guy. Amazing artist. He was teaching at this same school and they wouldn't keep him because he didn't have a master's degree.
Wow.
He had a high school diploma, but he's got an Emmy. He's a master.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
It's a little crazy. It does. It's something to be said about the educational system that we have now. I mean, not getting too political. It's all about money. So, and then we're all in debt. And you just become a slave for the rest of your life, an indentured servant, just to pay off $100,000 of a student loan. In other countries, you could feed a whole tribe of people, a whole village for $100,000. Whole village for $100,000, and that would maybe for 10 years.
Okay, well,
so it's like it's crazy. We're spending all this money for education, and yet the government gives these student loan places the money, and then gives it to them with like 1% interest. And then we take the money from those organizations and we end up paying between 5 to 10 to 20% interest in our student loans. It's ridiculous. And then you can't file bankruptcy. And anyway, enough of that.
A little bitter, but I understand it completely.
Yeah.
The choices I've made throughout my entire career has always been do what I love instead of what makes me money.
Sure.
Both of my kids went through college. They had I think they got $10,000 from their grandparents.
Sure.
And the rest of it was Pell Grants and stuff.
Sure.
Both of them have graduated with 0 student loans.
That's huge. Did they go to city school?
No.
Private
One went to
college?
Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
The other one to Cal State Long Beach.
Nice. That's great.
It was the power of creative poverty.
Yeah.
Because my wife's also an artist. We
Sure.
met at the Joe Kubert School. We've always kind of done the things we want. It's like poverty by choice.
Right. You're artists.
Yeah. In fact, I was at Brooks.
Brooks College?
Brooks College,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
In fact, I was the first one hired into the animation program
Okay.
there, and I helped create the animation program. Well, a new company bought it, and they got rid of Margot, the lady that had started it, which I don't know why, and they had the guards come in, and she had to pack it up, and they took her off.
Because it's corporate. I know. I've worked in those corporate colleges. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's just it's just nasty, nasty. She's a sweet lady, but anyway, they started going through chairs for the animation department like mad.
Oh, wow.
And they asked me if I wanted to be the chair, and I went, "No, I want to teach. I'm here to teach."
Right.
And so they gave it to this other joker, and I ended up teaching one of his classes. We're at the midterm, and he had done nothing with those students.
Wow.
He loved 3D Studio Max. That's all he wanted to teach. The other classes, nothing.
Wow.
And I got upset about it, so he
sure.
got rid of me.
I'm sure, yeah. Wow.
And then he moved off somewhere else to another for-pay college, and then they begged me to come back. And so I came back and taught, but it was like,
Oh, yeah, I get it. I get it.
I could have said yes and taken the money and stuff, but
Well, if you were at a chair, you could have had a little bit more power, control stuff, what was going on, what was being taught.
But probably not, because the
Yeah.
corporation was actually bleeding the
I'm
program.
Sure. They want to make as much money as possible with as little expense as possible.
Yeah, and I found out that the CEO of the company was cashing in $1 million a year in stock options.
Oh, man. That's wild.
Meanwhile, we're teaching these kids that are going to be in debt forever.
Sure, yeah.
Some of them went on.
Yeah. Well, what's the percentage? 10% of any students that go to a college will actually work within the field, and then 10% of them will actually succeed and stay within the field for 10 years? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So if you have a class of 100 students, one will make it.
Yeah. Well, when I look at the Kubert School, a lot more of us made it than that.
That's good. Well, I've worked in the industry, in multiple industries. I worked in audio, and I worked in video, and I worked in audio engineering, all this stuff. And honestly, it's one of those things where I don't know a single person from my audio engineering years that's still doing audio engineering. I'm sure there's some of them. There's got to be somebody still doing it. But majority of them, we're talking like 99% of them gone. Nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they all had the intention to go into it, but they stepped away from it. It's like bartending school. Go to bartending school. How many bartenders you ever meet that ever went to bartending school? Very few.
Yeah. So. Well, I do this thing with my students.
Yeah.
I'll go, okay, how many of you, depending on what I'm teaching,
Right.
how many of you have to be animated, or how many of you want to be animators? And all the hands go up, and I go, how many have to be animators?
Right.
And 80 to 90% of the hands go down.
Yeah.
And
that's a good gauge.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I schools hate this that I do it.
Well, you should do it.
Yeah, and I
Give
say
them some
if
perspective.
there's anything that you could be happy making money,
Right.
Accountants,
Right.
almost every one of them is working,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you're going to starve, and it's just how long you continue to keep
There's a difference
animating.
it's a difference between an artist and an employee. So
Yeah.
when you become an employee for somebody else, you're no longer being an artist. You can be hired as an artist, and you can do art for them, but you start turning off certain functions in your mind. And you go, okay, I'm gonna be this now. I can't be that while I'm this.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Well, it's like
Can you go home and you're too tired to even do art?
one of my big heroes is Bruce Bickford.
Oh yeah.
Met him through Stephen Kyoto, and of course met Stephen Kyoto. He helped when I was putting together Stop Mo Expo, and he brought him in. He was teaching at Stephen was teaching at Cal Arts.
Sure. Still there.
Yeah, still there. In experimental animation. Stop motion is experimental animation.
I love how they labeled that. Well,
Yeah,
back in the day, that it wasn't a stop motion specific thing. It was just crazy animation stuff, but then it's kind of evolved.
Yeah, but it's 1913, Starovich.
Yeah.
You're over 100 here.
Yeah.
Right? And it's experimental. But anyway, he brought in Bruce Bickford, and then I pulled some strings, and I brought Bruce and Stephen into the Annies that year.
Oh, nice.
And it was the most amazing thing at the after party, which they'd put up a big tent.
Yeah.
We were still at the Alex and Glendale. They put up this big tent. He sat down there, and he had this box full of these little rectangular vignettes that he had done in Sculpey. And he had these little windows that they went inside.
Wow.
And those were his business cards. And he was writing down his name and his number, and he was giving out business cards to everybody. I still got mine. It's
wow.
It's foam core.
Yeah.
And he's made this little window in it.
Yeah.
It was every single person there that was stop motion. Yeah, it was like a pilgrimage. Everybody was coming over to talk to Bickford.
Bruce Bickford, yeah.
Yeah, he was insanely good. He did things that are impossible. He would have 50 characters on the screen at the same time.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, because we went out to eat at one time, he was telling me that he started in the center, and he'd move that one, and he went in the spiral all the way around. 50 characters on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Click the button, start in the center, and so he's got every one and he's so intense when he does it. Stephen was telling me that he was doing an animation jam with the guys at Cal Arts, and Bruce started animating, and they couldn't get him to stop. He was just,
wow.
It just
Kept going.
It's like when he turned that on, that was this incredible focus.
Yeah.
And Stephen was in awe. He said it was scary even to see,
Well, he just released a new movie called Castle.
Oh, yeah, I got to see it.
Yeah.
I got to see
He was
it.
signing copies on eBay. I think you get one still. But
Yeah. How much are they?
I I don't even make $30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because creative poverty over here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You make those decisions.
Well, it's a difficult one. I'm always debating it with the magazines. Like, do I release this for paid or do I release this for non-paid? You know what I mean? It's like it's one of those things. That's one of the reasons why I started doing the free PDF was because I wanted people to read. I wanted people to learn. So
yeah,
it's a big difference. Yeah. So how did you get into Asifa?
That was interesting. I was coming in all the time. I went to World Animation Celebration that they had. They used to have them at...
They're going to have it in Marina now. Or they just had it, I think, maybe.
Yeah, they used to have it at the Roosevelt, and different companies would rent out the cabanas on the 2 levels around the swimming pool, and they always had it in the middle of the winter. And you always knew somebody was going to get in the pool. And you'd have... One of the little cabanas would have mainframe, and then I think Klosky Chupo had both the up and down on one side, and there's all these people there, and I was always involved in that, and I was going to the Asifa events, joined Asifa, and somebody asked if anybody had any ideas for fundraisers or presentations. Well, I had been doing Comic Con forever. My son went when his first Comic Con when he was 7.
Back in the 80s or 90s?
90s, I think it was. And my daughter went when she was 5. They went to the same one.
Yeah. It's been around. It's been going since like 70s, hasn't it?
Yeah. I moved out here from New Jersey in '84.
Oh, nice. You're from the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually was born in upstate New York. Wow. Moved to Florida. Went back to New Jersey for the Kubert School. Moved out here to break into special effects.
Sure.
Practical effects.
Right.
My son has had my severed head hanging in his closet since he's 5 years old.
Nice.
And once a year, I bring it out at Halloween, and it's starting to the latex is starting to deteriorate and stuff. Yeah. But hey, what are you going to do? Has the nice bloody neck and stuff. So I had done a number of ones at Comic Con. When I was doing the ROP, I got free booth out of them, and we would do ROP, and I'd get all these people, and of course they wouldn't support me, so the people would wander off.
Right.
And then it's my fault. That, it's like insane. I said, let's do Comic Con at Asifa at Comic Con.
Right.
In fact, I've already got us a booth.
Oh, there you go.
And I ran that thing, and I ran it for years.
Okay.
And I had it set up with a group of people that had moved up through the ranks, and I had the LA rep for Internet Movie Database, John Reeves. He was one of my guys.
IMDb.
Yeah. And then I had a guy that always came to all the meetings and all the events, Steve Gattuso. He was another one of my guys. Somebody claims that he's got Asperger's syndrome. I don't know. It worked great.
It's amazing what a disability will do for you sometimes.
Yeah, I just love Steve. Just the way he thinks, his mind works and everything. Yeah. And then Marcus Adams, and those are my three leads. And I was doing the booth, and I was doing a whole bunch of presentations, and I'd do the state of the animation industry, which I've got all of these. I got to get back and edit. I've got all of them on videotape or on mini DVD.
Yeah.
And had everybody up there. I had Eric Goldberg. I had Eddie Mott and Lily, I can't remember her last name. They did Mucha Lucha.
Mucha Lucha. Oh yeah, those guys. Okay.
Yeah, I love those guys.
I love that show. That was an
Yeah,
awesome show.
and then Tim Johnson, director of my favorite all-time DreamWorks animation, which is Over the Hedge.
Okay.
I just love that.
You love that
The
one?
whole cookie gag that
yeah.
runs 3/4 of the movie
Yeah.
is just beautiful.
I'm into the bear at the end.
Yeah. Nick
The truck.
Nolte.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a great movie. In fact, I met Tim at a pre-Oscar party that DreamWorks was having. And I was saying what I just said to you about my favorite animation and how amazing that was. And I look up and there's this guy just staring at me. And it was the co-director of the movie.
Wow.
So we've been good friends ever since.
Nice.
And he's done a lot of stuff. He did a lot of panels for me. We did judging for the first Asifa student animation awards. We did that up at DreamWorks. And Bill Plimpton and a whole bunch of guys. Floyd Norman. A lot of the UPA guys.
Right,
I'm good friends with T. Basusto.
Nice.
In fact, I used to do judging on his festival. He had this internet festival for a number of years, and I ended up doing the bronze casting and the creation of the trophy for that, which I did for a number of years, which is his father, who always did these amazing physical things when he was talking. You see pictures of him where he's got his foot up on a counter, and and so there's this drawing that one of the other Disney animators did of him somewhere in the 30s, like 35 or 36, and I did that into a 3D shape. And that was the trophy.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, and it was set on an animation wheel. So he was kind of standing on an animation wheel with the two rulers on it.
Yeah. So you showed me at Gumby Fest. You showed me a bunch of your designs for your puppets and stuff. So let's dive into the Larry Locke world of puppet building and animation, because you have such a unique perspective and technique.
Okay.
So let's dive into this, and of course we can't show anybody your examples, but we can at least talk about them. So we'll get to tie downs for next, but let's start with the copper wire, because I know that's a big subject.
I'm a big fan of copper wire. I use 12 gauge coated copper wire. It lasts longer than aluminum, and I don't know why anybody uses aluminum. And I've had this argument with a number of people. And
I know why they do, but
yeah.
But it's just tradition, really. It comes down to it, and then the fact that it doesn't react with anything. Copper does.
Copper does.
Yeah.
But it's coated, and then when I'm working with it, I will steal fingernail polish from my daughter and coat the ends that have the copper coming out.
Being exposed.
Yeah, being exposed. If you crimp something down with a set of pliers and it breaks through the coating. Last thing I do before I get into doing my construction is I'll go through and I'll just paint everything fairly thickly with
Now you're using latex, though. You're not using silicone with these puppets.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Tensile silicone will probably react to the copper as well as foam latex and liquid latex. But liquid latex will be probably better with that copper wire since it's coated. Foam latex might bake into it might gas out.
Yeah.
So
I've done foam latex, and I've done a number of things, and over the years I've simplified it down. I'm actually working cotton and liquid latex.
Yeah, that's great.
And
so your build-up method.
Yeah, I'm building it.
That's how Harryhausen did some of his stuff.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I look at some of the stuff. Pete Dodge showed me the Corpse Bride armatures, and I'm just
Yeah, $100,000 armatures. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
$500,000.
the heroes
Yeah.
were $250,000.
Yeah.
The hero armatures, they're just amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and those two guys, which
Because they had McKinnon and Saunders, and they had the what do you call it?
I got him an Annie that year.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
the iWorks Annie.
Nice.
I pushed it through. I pushed it really hard.
Nice.
Because those guys are just, they're just geniuses.
They're geniuses, yeah. And
this
they're
clockwork stuff.
Clockwork, yeah. That's what I'm gonna say. It's the Rolexes of the animation.
Yeah,
world,
and I've seen that, but I'm down on the other end of the scale, and it's good because the students are down on that end too. So
Yeah.
it works all right.
Well, animation, it's doing it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just watching it. It's doing it. So if you're gonna. You got to be able to do it.
And there's that point where you get where everything is just stopped and you're right there and you're right at the end of your fingers. It's just this amazing, amazing feeling.
Right.
I was doing water, and I used to be a lifeguard, and I had a clay sheet of blue clay, and I was bringing the waves in and using white clay to paint the foam and doing the whole thing.
Nice.
And I'd get maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds out of 5 hours of work.
Yeah.
But it was over in an instant.
Yeah.
It was just over.
If you're getting 2 seconds out of 5 hours worth of work, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, my timing's changed over the years.
You're
We'll talk about that later. No.
Speeding up.
I'm actually speeding up. But
Okay, keep going with the puppets. Yeah.
Okay, I have a 3-piece humanoid that I do, and I'll start at the feet in a loop, depending on if I'm going to do toes or if I'm going to do a boot or a shoe or something. And I'll come up one leg into the pelvis, up the spine, out to the arm, and another loop for where the fingers are going to be.
Okay.
And I do the other one is a copy of it. Okay, so the two of them are then held together by a third piece of wire, which attaches at the neck and then at the pelvis. And then I'm going to go in with our good friend plumber's epoxy.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'll do the fingers and the toes are telephone wire, or what they call bell wire. Again, it's a copper wire.
Sure.
And I'll do like for the hands, I'll leave the loop open and I'll wrap around the wrist, come out onto the thumb, come back in, do another wrap around that loop, go out for the first finger, come back, and if I'm doing a 4-finger hand, I'll end it on 4, or you can do a 5.
Sure.
It depends.
Yeah.
And then I crimp down that loop, and then I twist all of those wire loops for the fingers. Okay, and if you're going to do clay, and I did a lot of clay in my early days, you leave the loop open at the end of that twisted phone wire, and then put a little dollop of plumber's epoxy so it doesn't rip through the clay.
Sure.
If you're going to do like liquid latex and cotton, you crimp that down, and then you can have a really thin finger. Okay, same thing with the toes. Well, to tie these two together, I crimp at the top, crimp at the bottom, and if I'm doing a tail, I bring the tail out. It depends on what I'm doing.
Sure.
And I've done all kinds of things. I've done. I'm into Lovecraft, really heavy.
Yeah. Cthulhu and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. I did a gug, which is this weird thing. He explains that they have 2 forearms coming out of their arm, and they have like 2 hands on each hand.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of this. Yeah.
It's on the front of this book. This little blue guy.
Yeah. Oh, nice. That's your interpretation of it.
Yeah. And I had it at the.
So for the listeners, Larry makes his own comic books.
And they're stop motion comic books.
So he poses the characters. He builds the puppets, poses the characters, does the sets, does the compositing, and then prints them out. Larry, where can they get these, by the way?
Amazon has them. I've only got 3 of them out. I've done 5 of them. I'm not really happy with the reproduction that's coming out.
Sure.
It's print-on-demand stuff.
Yeah.
Some of them are good. Some of them are not. Some of makes no difference how good the photograph is that goes in. When it comes out,
Amazon. That's all it really comes down to. You're dealing with Amazon, so
and but they're there. I've got. Let's see. There's the statement of Harley Warren, which is a send up of the statement of Randolph Carter, where Randolph Carter's in the graveyard on the end of a phone as Harley Warren goes down. I switched it, and I follow Harley Warren down into the abyss where he meets Cthulhu and stuff, and there's a twist at the end.
Nice. So you're doing the same puppet designs for this comic book that you also do for your stop motion animation?
Yes. Yeah. And then I've been doing the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadeth, which I've wanted to do since my earliest days. I've done like 3 different versions of it. And I've started doing the puppet variety of it, and it's come out really well.
Cool.
If I could just get the reproduction down from the Amazon end, I may change publishers. I don't know.
Try Kablam.
Okay, give them a try.
Give them a try. That's what we print the magazine out of, and they're nice people. Some people don't like them. Some people hate them. It's it's basically just whatever you put into it. When you put into it, you get back. So, and they're really nice people. I've had good conversations with them and back and forth, and they're pretty on it. Like, oh, your colors are off. Oh, my colors are off. Oops. They let me know.
I get nothing from Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon's just a big company that's printing these with big printers. They have these machines now that print the whole book. There's nobody doing any binding anymore. You're not printing out sheet by sheet by sheet and then binding it together. The machine does all the work. So they punch in your file and it spits out a book.
And I'm just not happy with it. So I may change printers.
Okay.
I'll give those guys a try.
Yeah, try them out.
Then let's get back to the puppet.
Sure.
I then build the puppet using cotton and liquid latex.
Sure.
And I'm getting the stuff. I used to do a lot of makeup on people, monster makeup and stuff. Decapitations and all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I once got a guy kicked out of NYU film school because of the graphic nature of a hand mutilation.
Ooh, it's tough.
I had it on my resume for a couple of years. I was proud.
Nice.
But anyway, I build the thing up, and sometimes I'll put color in with it. And there's a fabric paint that I get at Joann's. Because I'm a teacher, I can get 15% off.
Yeah, you get that discount, yeah.
I have the little card. And sometimes I'll use Dr. Martin's dyes.
Beeswax?
No,
Dr. Martin's. Okay, I'm thinking of Dr. Martin's beeswax, but it's not Dr. Martin's. I'm sorry.
No, Dr. Martin's, they have like these really bright colored dyes, and they're transparent dyes. They have a transparent black.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but they have a transparent black that you can paint and stuff with, and you can use airbrush and all of that stuff. But I'll mix that in. And I'll have different jars that will have. I'm working on one project, and I'll mix the colors, and I'll work that entire project with it, and then I'll have it sitting around, and maybe I'll mix other things in with it and use it somewhere else, or maybe I'll do a repair on it, because you're going to need repairs.
Yeah.
Latex goes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got this big case of. I've got probably 150 characters that I've done in the last few years.
Sure.
And then I've got this other case that still has a lot of my clay stuff in it. I still have an octopus that I did back in, I think it was 99.
Okay.
I did a thing called Octopi R Squared.
Octopi R Squared?
Yes.
Nice.
it has this little guy with a food cart on the beach.
Huh.
And he's going around, and there's this one build-up to a scary part where this octopus comes out of a cave, and you think he's going to eat him, but he just wants a menu.
Oh, nice.
I still have that one. I
Very
still
cool.
use him. Anyway, I build the character, and then as you're building it, it goes through different stages, and you get to a stage where you can actually sculpt into it and get lots of detail. My favorite tool is the cap of a Bic pen.
Huh.
If you want to do like scales on, did you see the? Yeah, I think I showed you that. It was a deep one from the Innsmouth piece I did.
Okay.
All the scales were just pressing into it with
A tip.
with a tip of that
Poker.
the pen.
Yeah. Wait a minute. You're talking about the one that...
Yeah, the pen has this. It's like this conical thing, and it has an opening at the top.
Sure.
And it's a perfect.
Oh,
size.
that spot. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, and it just go in and do those. You know, when you can sculpt muscles and stuff.
Oh, neat.
And a lot of times while I'm building it, I will build muscles out of cotton and lay them out on the body.
Yeah. You twist it?
Yeah, sometimes.
glue it on? Yeah.
And then I'll do this thing where, I'll build back over it. That guy's got a six-pack, on his abdomen, which actually one of the muscles hides a support beam socket.
Oh, nice.
Okay. We should probably talk about my support beams and my tie downs.
Okay.
Okay.
So wait a minute. Just to brace everybody, Larry does something different, and it's something to look into because on, like in his book, most likely, Shoestring Budget, right? Mm-hmm. You find ways of doing things that don't cost a lot of money, and you're recycling a lot of materials.
Oh yeah.
So this is a big step in the way of thinking, because you're not going out to the hardware store and buying something. You can take something that's in your backyard and turn it into a tie down. So I'll let you take it from there. So
okay, I use bicycle spokes.
Right.
And they have this head on the end of the bicycle spoke, and it's perfectly, has this little, and I don't even know what size that
little
bolt,
thread,
that threaded bolt is. But it's real small, and I use them all the time. I cut down that head, and usually I'll cut it in half, and so I can put those in the feet. And I'll put one in the chest, or sometimes. And I've started to do this thing lately, where I'm tired of hiding. If somebody's going to have their shirt off, the character's going to have their shirt off. I'm tired of hiding the socket for the tie down, so I'm starting to use orifices of.
Oh yes, you mentioned this. Yes.
Yes, I think that the.
So you're sticking tie downs in their butt.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. And I have a witch that I used another orifice, but
okay.
what can you do?
Right.
It doesn't mar the surface, and you don't have to go in and do any cleanup on it. And the tie downs that I use, sometimes I'll have them very, very short. Usually when I build a set, I do component sets. I have all these pieces that I can put together. I have a corkboard that's been around long enough that it's water stained, and it's got this amazing kind of patina to it. And sometimes I'll brush a little sand over it, not enough that you're going to get phantom movement, like King Kong's hair.
Right, right.
Where's that breeze coming from?
Right.
And then I'll sometimes I'll do a longer one if both feet are off the ground. I can do a long one about an inch and a half, and have somebody jumping or something, and then go in and clean that up in something like Photoshop.
Got it.
So you always take your master plate before you start.
Of course. Yeah.
So you've got something to work with.
Yeah.
You lock down your camera.
Yep.
And off you go.
Right.
And they work great. And I also use them for support beams. And I've done all kinds of support beams. I used to use brass rods and cut them at 33-degree angle and do this. It never worked. Never worked. I always had problems with it. Then I started just twisting 12-gauge coated copper wire. Lately, Harbor Freight. I love Harbor Freight.
Okay.
Don't we all?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
They've got this mirror, which is on this extendable arm.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's like $6. You know, and you take a cut-off wheel on your Dremel tool, and you take the plastic handle off, and you mount that wherever you want to mount it. And then on the other end, I mount one of those bicycle threaded things as my attachment to the back of the character, and off we go. Now, it does have shadows because it's got that. So what you do is you take and sew a very fine fabric sheath that goes over it, and it gets painted the same color. And I do blue screen, I do green screen. I also do black and white. And it depends on what's on the character, what colors I'm dealing with. You know, because you can use any color as the color that you're going to cut the mat. You're going to move.
Exactly. Sometimes I prefer not to have any color. Just leave metal. But you want a tarnished metal. You don't want to have a shiny metal because you don't want it reflecting light on stuff. But we tend to go, especially with hair.
Yeah.
If you start green screening hair, you start eating away the hair. Sometimes to use the pen tool and or to roto it out, or just paint tool and just paint that out. You know.
Yeah. Well, I've started with hair. I push it into the wet latex and glue that into it so you don't have movement. Or I've done one where I used hot glue as a pomade and did it under the hair. And I was using the Dollar Tree has these really cheesy kind of barrette things that have different plastic hairs on them. They're great. I just cut those and off we go. And then I do a Rostaman type hair where I have 2 loops of I have hundreds of them, or 20 or 30 of them in a scalp. And they're like 2 loops of bell wire. And I'll wrap the hair around it, both sides of it, and then twist the whole thing so you get these Rostaman things. And when I had the witch flying, that was the hair that I had. And you just kind of move it around and it just whips all over the place, but you have control of the individual things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
So like I say, I've really marked out the low end as my territory, the cheap end.
Yeah.
Because, hey, students, you start talking about doing molds and stuff, and they just lose interest. But here you go. You can have it, and you can go from there.
Yeah. Cool. Now, can you tell me about this this object that's sitting on my floor? This awesome object that you definitely have a really great story about this piece.
Oh, yes. I have, what is that, about an eighth? Is that?
It's about an eighth, I think. It was a big set.
Yeah, it's an eighth of the Oogie Boogie set from Nightmare Before Christmas.
And so people know exactly what we're talking about. It's the light part of the set. So
the
ring,
roulette reel.
The roulette reel ring, which has the hearts and the skulls on it, and it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous piece, and it lights up. That's pretty awesome.
And it's still the original light bulbs in it.
And that's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, well, there was this volunteer I had when I was running all the volunteers for Asifa Hollywood. Her name was Scooter, which wasn't really her name, but that was what everybody called her. I can't remember her last name. I wish I could, because she actually came up with a concept of Stop Mo Expo. That was her title.
Oh, wow.
And I went, whoa, we got to do this. And I started doing it. And she was just starting in at Robot Chicken at the time.
Okay.
She also was the person that had a contact to the guy that found this in the dumpster.
Oh, okay.
And she had cut some deal where she'd end up with part of it, and the rest of it would go to Asifa or something.
Sure.
Then her boyfriend moved back east, and she gave up everything and moved with him. And I'm going, oh, Scooter, you fool, you fool.
Yeah.
You know, what
Love
guy
will do that
would
for you.
yeah,
Love will
what
do it
guy
for you.
would give up his just beginning career to move with a girl somewhere?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen. But anyway,
I did it.
you did it.
No, I almost did it. I take it back. I stayed. Yes and no. I stayed in Los Angeles because of my wife. I was going to move back to my hometown. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I see it. I've seen it a lot.
Yeah. But anyway, she put me in touch with this guy, and I put together a deal where he brought down, I think he had almost the full set. One piece was missing. And he had found it in a dumpster in a strange way. San Francisco, he had been in a bicycle accident. And at the time, it was a Saturday morning, and he was going to the police station to pay his fine because he was, he was in wrong.
Okay. In the accident?
In the accident,
Okay.
And he's got one arm that's in traction or something.
Okay,
You know how they
and a
do
cast,
those?
yeah.
The cast, but they have the
Elevated?
Yeah, the metal brace coming
Yeah,
up. And,
yeah.
And he walks by this place, and they're throwing out all this stuff, and they were striking the set from Nightmare.
Oh, God.
And he asked him if he could have one of them. They said, sure. And so he took one of them with him, paid his fine, came back, and then dug out all the others with
Wow.
the broken arm in the metal traction thing.
Yeah.
And he had those in his kitchen for years. And the kitchen had cupboards that had a top to the cupboards, and he had them up there, which is the worst place to store anything.
It's going to heat and all that stuff. Yeah.
And oil.
Yeah.
Just
Smoke.
scum.
Yeah.
So I cut this deal with him. I got him and a friend a set of tickets for the Annies. He came down. He brought him down with him. I ended up with one piece. The rest of them went to the Asifa, the Asifa archives. And I don't know if they ever did anything with it.
Sure. Might be in a
One
dumpster
jerk
somewhere.
that was there wanted to sell it and use the money for his own projects, but we stopped him. Anyway, I spent 10 hours with a box of Q-tips, very mildly diluted. Like dish soap,
Okay.
cleaning this. And I was there for 10 hours, just going through the Q-tips and pulling all that stuff off. And I got the thing done, and it had this cable that came out, which is for Christmas tree lights, which it had Christmas tree lights in it. And it had those two little orange caps that screw down on it. I found something that had a cable, a cord. I cut it off of some piece, and I twisted it up, put those little caps on it, plugged it in, and every light worked. They're original lights, and they're still working.
Yeah. That's wild. That's wild.
And it's just gorgeous. I take it in, and my students just lose it. They just completely. They're up there with their cell phones taking photos. They're calling their roommates up at breaks, so the roommates are sneaking into my class to look at it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a piece of history right there.
Oh yeah, and they were throwing it out.
Yeah.
It went in the trash.
What was funny is Chicken Run was the largest grossing stop motion film of all time. But I would say Nightmare Before Christmas was probably the most influential stop motion film of all time.
Absolutely.
Besides Harryhausen films, of course. But
Well, in the new
huge.
modern day, it was just, and I know a lot of people that worked on it, Tennessee Reed Norton, and a whole bunch of other guys that
Rob Ronning.
Yeah.
He
that,
made Oogie Boogie. Yeah.
Yeah, that did the Stop Mo Expo.
Yeah.
We had tons of those guys.
It's crazy because they were told by Disney, break all your molds and throw all your puppets away. Isn't that crazy? It's nuts.
That's insane.
It's total insanity. So not only did they throw away all the historical props and elements that were supposed to go into that, that went into that film, but they destroyed puppets. Well, I know that some of them escaped. But They destroyed
Burton had
molds.
a whole set.
They destroyed molds,
which he sold a few years back.
Oh, I'm sure. But I knew people that were in the production that took some stuff that were damaged puppets that they died. There's some stuff in storage. What is it? I'm sure the heads are still in storage somewhere.
Yeah.
But that stuff will never see the light of day. It'll never see the light of day.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's just stupid.
Well, I used to tell them at Robot Chicken, I'd be like, hey, you have some amazing sets and props here, and puppets and all sorts of great stuff. Why don't you have like a gallery show? Why don't you have a big show, or museum exhibit where you could go in and you could see all this stuff? And they always, hey, it's a great idea. No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to throw them away.
I love Robot Chicken.
Yeah, but they put a lot of stuff in storage. But the problem with the storage situation is that when it sits in storage, this foam latex breaks down, breaks down, latex breaks down. All the cardboard and shit that you use, the glue and all this stuff, it falls apart over time. So
everything except Harryhausen's Medusa.
Oh yeah. Well, did you see the exhibit when they came out over here at the Academy?
Oh yeah, I've seen it. Was that the Mark Davis one?
I don't know. I just know that I have the pamphlet somewhere, but it's the Academy of Arts. Went there and
no.
Yeah.
I saw them at the time of Clash of the Titans.
Oh, okay.
In New York City. I was still in New York.
Oh, okay.
I was in New Jersey. I went in and what was it, the Museum of Modern Art, and they're at the bottom.
Nice. Okay.
And I have this. It's very hard for me to say Clash of the Titans because these two little blue-haired ladies came down the stairs with white wine and brie on their breath, took a look at it, and one looked at the other one and goes, "Oh, it's from that movie, Clash of the Titians." So more times than not, call it Clash of the Titians.
Nice. Well, they had an exhibit over at the Academy, the Oscars and other. So they had it over at the Academy, and you go upstairs. They had a Looney Tunes exhibit at the same time, but you'd go in there, and they had a whole wing of this building just dedicated to Harryhausen, and it was amazing. They had the Medusa, they had the Cyclops, the armature of the Cyclops.
Yeah, a lot of it is falling apart.
Yeah, in fact, the Cyclops was missing, I think, a leg. Somewhere along the road.
But for some reason, the foam latex on the Medusa has stayed. I saw that originally in New York City in the basement of the Museum of Modern Art. I saw it at the Mark Davis thing where Harryhausen was in while he was still alive. He had it there, and it stayed. I don't know what he did with that formula.
There was quite a few puppets that actually seemed like they stayed.
Yeah, he got his formula right.
Yeah, it was.
It was a little harder. It seemed to be.
You think he made that foam latex himself?
Oh, probably.
Or he just didn't go to the makeup company and have them, because it's Berman makes. GM
Berman
foam,
does a lot of it.
GM foam. I'm trying to think of the one back in the day.
They're in my book. He plugs the book that he hasn't even got out yet.
Well, there's a number of what do you call it? Foam latex companies back in the day that are now gone. Those formulas are gone. So
yeah.
And part of it might be because of the chemicals. We can't use the specific chemicals that they used back in the day, like formaldehyde or something.
Yeah.
California wouldn't let you produce that. But now there's like a handful of foam latex. Like GM Foam is now owned by Berman Industries.
Okay.
And then you got Monster Makers, I think, makes a foam. And then Motion Picture Effects makes a foam.
Yeah.
So there's very few foam places.
And foam was so hard to work with. Yeah.
I love it, but I hate it at the same time. It smells. It's hard to work. I mean, actually, when it's baking, it's almost like it's cookies in the oven. You're like, oh, foam.
Yeah, but if you overdo it, every piece of food that comes out of that oven from then on,
well, that's
taste.
That's the thing. You should not be doing foam latex in your home oven. You can do maybe one or two, but then you got to clean the hell out of your oven.
Yeah.
Because my wife, I did it twice, and then
and you're still married, huh?
Still married, but she made me swear I would never do it again. So I actually had to go and get what's that spray on oven cleaner? And spray the whole oven down. It made the whole house smell like foam latex. And it's also, you don't know what the ingredients are in that foam latex. You don't know if you're boiling mercury or not. You know what I mean?
Have no idea.
Yeah. So you could be vaporizing mercury in your house and then inhaling that. I mean, I'm not saying that mercury's in the foam latex, but I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah,
so
I have no idea what's in it either.
Yeah, whatever in there, you're vaporizing that, and that's going to go up in the air.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. So I built my own foam latex oven.
Yeah.
So and I don't advise that. I think it's actually cheaper and better just to go buy a little pizza oven, and just stick it in there. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I quit doing it. I like I said, down and dirty.
I'm in silicone world now. So silicone's a lot easier to work with.
I've done silicone molds and stuff. This thing that I gave you with the transparent clay.
Yeah, Larry makes a clay, by the way. It's a homebrew clay system that he's invented or created. So
Yeah, well, this is a silicone thing you can get off the internet. It has 2 different colors, and you mix it together.
mix them together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for hearing aids. You take
wow.
molds of the ear, but you can put several of them together. So I love these containers. Transparent clay, let me give you that formula real quick if you're interested. Let me grab I have a little, I want to make sure I get it right.
He walked up to me and he goes, "Check this out." He had me at Asifa, or not Asifa, a Gumby, and he goes, "Check this out. This is my clay recipe." He has it right on his cards.
Okay, so 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, the light, don't use the dark. 1/4 tablespoon of salt, 1/4 tablespoon of corn starch. And then if you're doing color, a drop of color, red or yellow if you're doing other liquids. Green, I've used green a number of times for monsters. And then you stir it up in the pan and let it set for about 2 minutes. Then you get out a bunch of cups, like I have these teacups, Asian teacups, Japanese, little round red ones, and I'll get a whole series of those out. And you put it on heat with a wire whip, and you stir until it starts bubbling. And then you want to take it off and pour a little bit of that into the first cup. Put it back down, do it a little more. Pour off the next batch and put it back, in 2 or 3 batches, usually 3 or 4 batches you pull off. The timing is really, really tight on this. So you get around it by using this trick. One of those batches will be right. And the one that you think is right, well, it's still hot, it's probably going to turn into like a candy cane. It's going to,
you can eat it later.
Yeah. It's going to shatter and break. But one of the others in between, you're going to have one that's not cooked enough, and you can actually put that in and recook it and try to bring it back up. It's a shot in the dark, but hey, why not? Yeah. And you can use more and do larger amounts of it. The clay, when you get it right, you can do a drop. You can pull it out, and that drop will stand there. It will fight gravity. You can have a blood splash where it's sticking out from the center of the character, and you have several of them sticking out, and it over time it'll start to sag, but you got enough time that you can take a shot of it, and you can animate the whole sucker, which is
that's cool.
Yeah, the hair gel that's fine for doing things, but it's nice when you can actually animate this clay, and it's.
So how did you get to discovering this recipe?
I paid for my 7 years of college as a chef.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay, so
you played around with quite a bit of ingredients there.
Yeah, and I'd done candies and stuff, and I do jams and jellies and stuff. Every year, my wife and I will do batches of. I've got a peach tree, and I do a peach, and then I'll get things at the store that are cheap. And then this year, we found rose hips along the side of the road. So both of us were out there picking up rose hips, and you come up with this rose hip jelly.
Okay.
And it's one of the people we gave a bottle to said it was like tasting a good smell. And I thought, wow, that was beautiful.
Nice.
It's really delicate. So I've been doing that kind of stuff for years.
Yeah.
So I just started working with it. I needed something, and I do a lot of experimenting. Like my Christmas light things, which I showed you earlier with the replacement caps.
Right. We should talk about that actually.
Okay, well.
So we're going to discuss how you do your light fixtures for your sets, basically, right?
Yeah, and I do component sets. I'll usually print up like bricks or something on cardstock. I pull a lot of things out of the files for 3D Studio Max, and I'll actually put some bump on them so they got some texture to the image, and then I'll print them out, and I will wallpaper the back of my set with bricks. And then I have this long strip that has all of these scansions, which are kind of like a skull in a hand holding this scansion that has a skull on it, and it has a little Christmas tree light. And like the Dollar Tree, just around Christmas time, they put in all these little LED lights, and they have them in red and white and green and blue, and I just buy them out because I know I'm going to use them over the years.
Sure.
You know, I just go in there, and it's like $1 for each one of them, and I just buy them, you know, and just stock them. And the cool thing is you can run it from 2 AA batteries, and you can cut any length, and it'll still light. You know, so you can have a single light, or you can have a whole group of them. So on this rail has these scansions, which I'm actually doing a press mold with plumber's epoxy. And there's a point when plumber's epoxy is curing where it's still, because I'm using a hard plaster mold, it's still kind of rubbery, and you can pull it out. So you got to get them right, because if you don't pull them, the mold's gone. And I do those around all of these lights, and then my flame for these candles, the one that I brought in is blue, and I've actually got one on my website. You can see it. It looks photoreal. It's like scary how real it comes out. I build the caps. I take like a drill bit, which is just a little bit bigger than that LED, and I take hot glue, and I dip the thing into Vaseline, you know, the bit into Vaseline, and then I kind of almost do a cake painting with a hot glue on top of it, and build this set of caps, and I'll build 50 or 60 of them. Then I'll go through and I'll find ones and do like a puppet tune set. And it's like I experimented with it and experimented very little movement. Sometimes you just put one cap on and you touch it, or you turn it just a little bit, and you get this flame. And I have one up on my website, which looks real.
So what's your website?
It is www.agni-animation.com. And you're going to have to dig down into it. I have a whole list of links here for where things are, but I'll let you do whatever you want with it.
I'll put this in the information section of the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's got a bunch of animation jams they've done over the years. The one we did with a down shooter at Stopmo Expo. And I did the same one with the same down shooter, which is actually a stage with a proscenium arch and velvet curtains and stuff.
Sure.
I did that at the Pencil Mileage Club. At
the Pencil Mileage Club?
They're an animation club at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, okay.
And then last year I did this at this school, which is a school for troubled kids. And I brought it in, and I worked with them for 3 hours. They had 3.5 hours, but they had to have a break of about a half hour in the middle of it. And they'd never animated before, and they ended up with a minute 33. And there was some of them that really, really understood. I had a lot of toys, had cotton, I had clay. You know, there's people doing vapor trails of robots flying across the screen.
Nice.
It was just they just completely dug it and completely understood it, just like that. And I'm convinced that stop motion is probably the most accessible form. It's like kids playing.
It is the one because it's tactile.
Yeah,
You know?
and
It's easy to understand too because you move it frame by frame instead of having to do keyframes in either CG or in or key poses in 2D.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's way
Although
more
I
accessible.
have done that with stop motion.
Key poses and then going through.
Yeah, I did a couple of things. My timing has changed. It used to be, ones.
Right.
It was a religion. And then I did a scene for Bill Plimpton's global guard dog jam. It was redoing his guard dog.
Oh yeah, I remember
yeah.
that. Those were great.
Yeah, and it was like 80 different animators around the world. And I had scene 52, which was a bounce.
Okay.
A dog bounce. He's bouncing. And I did track reading on the whole thing. I figured out exactly what was going on. I think at one point I even asked him to send me his X sheet, his exposure sheet.
Sure.
You stop motion people don't know what that is. But it was a 4-cycle with a replacement at the 3 position. So he would bounce, and at the top of the bounce, there would be like one with his tongue hanging out, and you switch it out.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
think there were 7 images. So I built a armature of a dog. It was all clay, and I took 7 images of him, and I did exactly what he did. So I was doing Bill Plimpton's timing with this bounce with the replacement of the tongue.
Sure.
And then I did. He does all this stuff in pastels, which is kind of weird. Kind of gives you this jittery thing, but some
Sure.
people like it.
Sure.
I painted up or took pastels, stole them from my daughter, who's also an artist, and drew grass, scanned it, brought it into 3D Max, dropped it onto a rectangle that I put noise on, and then put bump on, and that was the ground underneath where I was going to bring in this image, because I cut masks for it.
Sure.
7 masks, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then I did the background. I did a sky in pastels, and I had this long rectangle that I was moving behind him because it was a panning cycle.
Okay.
So it was moving behind him. And I set that sucker up, and I did it exactly as he did. And since then, my timing has changed. I find myself actually working in 3s, which is blasphemy.
No. There's people that work in 3s now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's complete.
Use
It's
3 for certain things,
heresy
yeah.
as far as I was concerned before.
Right.
And I'm starting to do UPA type timing, and
Yeah.
I love UPA.
Oh yeah.
There's this one scene. It's a long shot. It's in Gerald McBoing Boing. Willis Pyle did it,
Okay.
and I talked to him at one of the events about it. And it's Gerald McBoing Boing going to school, and he's in this long shot, and there's just this amazing bounce that he's doing as he's walking. It's just incredible. Has a lot of energy. So I'm starting to do things like that. I'm trying to get into that, but I still have this feeling I'm working on 3s. I'm a sinner.
You're okay. You shouldn't have to worry about that because 1s, 2s, and 3s. I actually back in the day, I remember everybody would yell at me on the forums. You shouldn't animate in 3s. Like, no, you can animate in 3s. It's used for certain techniques. It's a type of hold or transition. But
yeah.
you can animate everything on 3s.
Yeah.
You should be fine.
Yeah, and I do holds and stuff.
Gives it a specific style of look.
Yeah. And I like that look, but I still think I'm a sinner. I had a very religious background, so that's the way I think about things.
Yeah.
Bless me, Father, for I have animated on 3s.
Very cool. So, what are you working on now, though? Are you doing any animation right now, or are you just taking a break?
I did these 3, and I'm at this point where I got to get back into the book. I got to get to finish the book. So I've been holding off, and I've got this feeling that I want to get right back in and animate again because they're so much fun.
Oh yeah.
But I've got all these other things that I'm doing. I've got a novel that I wrote that it's been setting for about a year and a half. It's a very strange novel. It has 2 sides to the page, and they're separate stories. One is like in everyday world, and the other one is in a mystical world. You know, and they kind of. And it's also my life story. So
nice.
And I got to get back to that. And I had a book that I did before that, which is on tarot cards. I have a set of tarot cards that the major arcana took me 22 years to do.
Oh, wow.
And then the minor arcana, I keep dream journals.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I had no intention of doing the minor arcana. I just didn't want to. And one night I had somebody came to me and told me that these were the 5 suits. And I go, 5 suits? There's 4 suits. And there was 5 suits. And I did that in about a month and a half, which there's, 13 cards to a deck, and just I painted those because I'm also a painter. So I have those.
So what's the 5th suit? Heart Club.
No,
spade.
it was cups, swords, masks. I can't remember. It's been 2 years since I wrote the book.
You have to go back and check it out again.
Yeah. Well, when that side of the mind is going, it's not in the rational world.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's almost the same place I get when I'm animating. So, hey.
A dream state.
Yeah. I think it is.
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So how are we doing on time?
We're great on time. We have about 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Very good.
I must confess that I watched all of your podcasts, so I know
nice.
you're in question, and it's going to come out contrived if you ask.
Do you need a longer time?
No, it's going to come out contrived if you ask me what inspires me. So you have to come up with a new question.
A new question. Okay, sure. So in this one, how do you see the world now in stop motion? Where do you think it's going?
Oh, I'm just so happy that it's taking off the way it is. There's so much going on, and I can rub it in the face of these jerks that tell me, "Oh, it's dead art. We're not going to teach it here." It's because you can't teach it because you don't know. You don't think that way, you idiots.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a little bitter, but most of the people in the animation departments in the colleges are either 2D or CGI, and they haven't got a clue.
Right.
And they can't teach it, and they don't want to look stupid in front of their students, so they say, it can't be done, right? There's no future to it. I just love what's going on. I'm a little concerned with replacement faces and 3D printing. It's getting too good. It's getting to the point where it's not looking like stop motion.
Well, the animation's getting smoother too.
Yeah, and that kind of bothers me too because I like the roughness of it. I like the visceral feel.
Right.
There's something primordial about it. When you look at those Harryhausen things, even if there is a gauge in one of the frames, there's something about it that it's just so much more real. CGI effects in movies, you do practical effects, like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. They did practical effects, and they look so much more real.
What's weird is a lot of the times they claim that a lot of the effects are CGI, but they're actually practical. So I'll give you a good example. Episode 1 of Star Wars, there's a ton of practical effects in there, and people thought it was all CG.
Yeah.
And there's a ton. I mean, I know some of the people that built those sets. Huge sets. We're talking huge sets. And they're gorgeous. The models and all the stuff that they built, the miniature scales. I think what's happened is there's no stop motion puppetry anymore in these movies mixed with the live action. So that's what's kind of killing the whole this looks better this way, this looks better that way, and that's why they're doing a lot of this stuff CG. I mean, you wouldn't do fire and smoke unless you would do it CG or you do a practical shoot of it and then composite it in.
Okay, well, yes, but I have done smoke with cotton.
Sure.
I do water and stuff,
But I'm just talking about, for example, for like the Avengers. That movie has to be all CG. It has to be.
Yeah.
That's given. That's what's launched those films to a whole new level.
Yeah.
But what we're missing is those B-movie VHS tape backroom videos that are just amazing. That
You mean the stuff I'm doing?
Well,
that's not making it to
like
video.
Night Beast, Night Beast, which is a Don Dollar film. It's like you don't see that stuff anymore because you do see it. I take it back, but it's all CG now.
Yeah,
and that's what looks
Shaun
bad.
the Sheep. Loved it. A pantomime movie. Their water was practical, their smoke was CGI. You can tell. Yeah. But what are you going to do?
Well, they've been doing water for a while since they did Pirates. So
yeah.
So Pirates was done with Houdini.
Yeah,
which is a bad word in stop motion world, but actually it's a good word because it's only an effects software. I mean, you can do all sorts of other stuff, but we like Houdini because it gives us options that we can't get otherwise.
Yeah, well, I'm really positive, getting back to our question, about where CGI is going. If they could just get some idiots to teach it in the schools.
The stop motion, well, they are. Yeah. So I think one of the who was I talking to yesterday?
Well, there's a guy up that's done a couple of books. He's up
my buddy Matt teaches at Woodbury.
Yeah.
My buddy.
Well, I actually did the first stop motion there when I mentored that girl we're talking about.
Yeah.
And Dory's amazing. Mm-hmm. I love Dory.
Sure.
She completely realizes that she doesn't know stop motion, and she goes out and gets people in the industry.
Nice.
But
you have to do that.
And
you're not going to go to UCLA to learn stop motion, though, and you're not going to go to UC Irvine and any of these places to learn stop motion.
No,
you have to go to a college. Detroit has a program.
Yeah.
RIT has a program.
Yeah, and there's a guy that's done a couple of books, with kind of medium level books. In I think Van Arts. He's at Van Arts.
Oh, you're talking about Ken Prieb.
Yeah, Prieb. Yeah. I know him. Good guy.
Good guy. Yeah. He teaches stop motion, definitely. He's a definite advocate for it.
Yeah, but I've been looking on the internet trying to find if the Cerritos Community College that does the big Gumby Fest teaches any classes in stop motion. I can't find any.
Well, they're building I had a huge conversation with their dean of music. We sat down, we hung out for about a good hour, actually. And he ran me through the whole visual arts program that they're building over there. That whole building construction that they're building over at Citrus College is going to be a visual arts facility. And so they're going to have animation programs and video making, and part of that I think is going to be practical visual effects stuff, which includes stop motion.
Excellent.
But they can't offer it right now because they don't have the facility yet, so they're building it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen that a couple of times. Community colleges have better programs than state universities.
It sometimes happens, yeah.
Was it Glendale Community College has a great 2D animation program, and I think they're into CGI now, and it's taught by some top people.
Yeah.
Then you go to like a state college, and it's just not offering.
Cal State LA has a good animation program. They have a good animation degree over there. So you go there.
Do they have?
They don't do stop motion though. They do 2D and they hand drawn and they do CGI.
Yep.
So the thing is though, you could still do stop motion if you go to these colleges. I'll give you a great example. You go to these colleges and they don't offer stop motion animation, and they don't offer anything that you really want to go into, but you're going to go study something. Your best bet's to go study art. Go study art, and then build all your stuff, and then take a photography program and mix them together.
Yeah.
You don't have to do just a stop motion program. And here's the thing with the degrees: you're not gonna, if you go get a degree in stop motion animation, you're pigeonholing yourself into a world that you're not gonna make a lot of money in, because stop motion doesn't make a lot of money.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But God, it's fun.
It is fun.
So much fun.
So the majority of people that I work with in the field don't have animation degrees or stop motion degrees. The animators will. The animators will have animation degrees, but not all of them. Some of them have degrees in psychology. Some of them have degrees in acting. So
that fits.
Yeah. And then you go to the sets in the prop department, and they all have art degrees, or not even art degrees. They have a liberal arts degree, or
they might be engineers or something.
Yeah, engineering degrees. I mean, it's amazing. So you run across multiple talents, and some people don't even have degrees. They just fell into the position, and they're just doing their thing.
Yeah. So that's why the schools will not hire them to teach it.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because they don't have a degree.
Yeah,
I worked with a guy that had a master's degree at a school I will not mention.
Did you know what he was doing?
didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Made everybody work on twos. And when I got him in the pre-production class, I got his students, I had to reteach them.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, they had no idea what a smear was.
Yeah.
They didn't know what the law of threes was. They didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
it's a shame. It's a real shame. Well, I went to a bad school as well, so I want to talk too bad. I went to some good schools and I went to some bad schools, and the bad ones, you sit there and you go, why did I spend that much money on that school? And I was teaching the teachers.
Yeah, and I've done that before.
Yeah, and I had too much experience. Honestly, I had too much experience going back to college in my 30s. It was just a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. I should have been like,
Yeah, but now you can teach.
No, I can't.
Oh, you didn't get a master's?
No, I didn't finish the degree. I was 1 or 2 classes away from my bachelor's, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go take this job over at Robot Chicken because I can.
And it's probably a better decision.
And it was a better deal. It was a better decision, and I'm going to learn more from doing that than it will finishing the degree.
Yeah.
And if I would have finished the degree, I would have lost the opportunity. So I took the opportunity, and I've had a career in the animation industry for
absolutely.
So
well, I went to the Kubert School, and it was all taught by professionals, and that just made all the difference in the world.
Sure.
You know, and another thing I tell my students, I said, look around the classroom. Right. 30 years from now, you'll still be working with these people.
And that's very true. That's very true. Well, it depends on the school, though, honestly. Because if you look at what's that one up? The Disney school. What is that one?
Oh, CalArts?
CalArts, yes.
Yeah.
CalArts.
Chenard's originally until they came in and reworked it.
Well, if you go to CalArts or Arts Center, chances are you're going to be working side by side with those people 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm trying to get across to the students, you don't want to burn any bridges.
Yes.
You know,
I've seen that.
Oh, yeah. I've got a guy that I went to school with, amazing director in the 2D field in television. I won't tell you anything he did because you'll figure out who he is. He's burned every bridge in the industry. I was once sitting in a room with a whole bunch of animation people, and I was wearing a T-shirt that was from one of his pilots, and everybody had a bad story about this guy.
Oh, gosh.
And one guy had actually recommended him for a job. He was in Taiwan, and someone says, I've got a producer that's insane. I need somebody that's just as insane to counteract him. Have you got any directors that are completely
nuts?
Yeah. He says, I got the director for you. That's not the kind of thing you want.
No, you don't.
You don't want that.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, I've seen quite a few people burn bridges super fast.
Oh, you can't do it.
Well,
it's a small industry,
you
small.
You can't have the ego. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen people that have power. People that have power in the industry, and they have this huge ego, and you watch them burn a lot of bridges with the people that are the little people, the people that I stand side by side with. All these little people that I work side by side with, because I'm a little person as well.
Yeah.
And we talk. And we communicate with each other. And we go, I'm not going to work at this studio. I'm not going to work for that guy. I'm not going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And then when that person leaves that studio, then you go, oh, now I can go back and work at that studio again. Because you couldn't.
Yeah,
you know, It's one of those subjects that's it's very hard to talk about, especially on a podcast, because you don't want to name any names.
You don't want any name.
Yes,
you don't want
exactly.
to. Which, by the way, it would be considered libel, even though it's spoken word.
Oh yeah. Well, you don't want to defame anybody.
Yes, yeah. But I studied copyright law and all of that stuff.
Right.
Because when I went to school, nobody taught that.
Right. Well, stories are something different than saying somebody's character judgment. You don't want to character judge somebody.
No.
If you have a story about them, though, that's totally different.
Yeah.
So anyway, the studios. I like all the studios out here. I don't want to pick any battles with anybody. I'm still cordial with everybody. So I didn't. I haven't burned any bridges, which is nice. I do say that I'm banned from some studios, but that's more of my own choice because I choose not to go back to certain specific spaces because of ego, my ego, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back and feel like a piece of crap because, take a smaller position. I like to be in a bigger position. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a small industry. You know all these people that I know.
Yeah, which is hilarious. I think it's hilarious that we know the same people.
And when I was doing the Stop Mo Expo, I was so busy running around. I may have seen you there, but
Oh, I walked right up to you. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Good to meet you." And
I had like 20 things going at once.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They told me not to film the screen because there was kids animation up there, and I was filming the people talking, but you can't film the screen. The screen's right behind everybody.
Yeah.
It was really hard. It was really difficult to film things.
Yeah, but that was a fun event.
Oh yeah. Well, the magazine's going to have some events probably next year.
Yeah.
So not necessarily like a Gumby Fest or a Asifa thing, but we're going to probably try to do an annual subscription base next year, so people can purchase print copies that will get mailed to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so we're going to have a launch party.
Okay.
You gotta come down
I
for that.
have got that amazing downshooter set with the proscenium.
Sure.
And if somebody wants to do
We're going to have a warehouse space. I was talking to John
just
Tucker.
set it up, and you lock the thing down with C clamps.
Yeah.
You lock your camera in. I've got to rebuild the camera mount.
Yeah.
I of course bought the cheapest camera mount I could get from.
Well, we'll talk more. I just met with John Tucker yesterday. He's going to come on the podcast, I think, in the week, and we're going to suss some things out and figure some stuff out. Of course, it's all budgetary and figuring out what we can afford to do, what we can't afford to do. But and then let's stay in touch. And,
okay, sounds good.
This is a great podcast. You got to come back on here.
Okay, yeah. Oh, totally. And of your podcast, I love the Teresa Drilling.
Oh,
I just love her. She's
great.
amazing.
She's great.
I've never met her in person, but I've emailed her a lot. I'm part of the Afternoon of Remembrance when people die in the industry.
She has not died yet, by the way.
No, she hasn't.
Still pretty young.
Yeah, but Asifa and Women in Animation and the Animation Guild, which is the union, but they changed the name, so it's no longer the union. They put on an Afternoon of Remembrance at the beginning of each year. And I contacted her. It was, I think, Dave Bosworth, the one that did with Bolex Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was looking for somebody, they always come to me for the stop motion people. And now, by the way, I'm going to call you whenever I'm looking for
do it. I'm here.
And she was very, very helpful.
Nice.
And then I have this thing that I have my students interview animators. And I have the Animation Hall of Fame. And I had a student, animation student, interview her. And she was really, really nice.
Oh, cool. I worked side by side with her, so she's amazing. Worked in the same facility on the Tumbleleaf season 1. She's really, really sweet, really, really nice. It's one of those things in the industry. There's a couple bad apples, but for the most part, like 98% of the people that you run into in the animation industry are really sweet, good people. Which is a really good sign for humanity.
Yes. Stephen Kyoto had told me about the Frosty the Snowman sequence that she animated in Elf, and the first time through the camera didn't pick it up or something. And he said that she'd animated something like 25 hours. Well, I talked to her, and she said she actually did 3 takes in 45 hours.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
With just a little rest in between.
Yeah.
It just amazed me. Just blew me away.
She's also a belly dancer.
Really?
Or she's ex-belly dancer, I guess. But yeah.
That didn't make it into her...
I don't know how that didn't get into the podcast.
No, it didn't make it into her interview that's up at the Animation Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's one of those things we talked... and I remember, if I'm remembering this correctly, she does the whole sword dancing thing as well. So,
cool.
Yeah. She's very talented, very talented. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Well, dude, it's great to sit and have this great conversation with you.
Yeah.
Got to come back, and then you keep me updated on everything. We'll update the website and let everybody know what's going on.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.